This is Thomas Edison was an American inventor with over 1,000 patents, most famous for the electric light bulb that changed people's lives. But did you know that his life was also full of difficulties before he invented the light bulb? As a child, Thomas Edison was labeled slow by his teacher and dropped out of school after just 3 months. Growing up poor, he had to sell newspapers on trains while teaching himself from books. Later, when working on the electric light bulb, Edison faced endless struggles. He failed thousands of times, testing over 6,000 materials for the filament. People mocked him, calling him a dreamer wasting his life. But Edison never gave up. He believed, "I have not failed. I've just found thousands of ways that won't work." Finally, in 1879, his persistence paid off. Edison invented the first practical light bulb, changing the world forever, and leaving behind over 1,000 patents as proof that failure can be the path to greatness. In 17th century France, there was a prisoner unlike any other. He was locked away for decades, but here's the catch. He was forced to wear an iron mask so that no one could ever see his face. Guards were ordered, if they even glimpsed him, they'd be executed. So who was he? Some say he was a disgraced general. Others believed he knew a dangerous royal secret. And the most shocking theory, that he was the secret twin brother of King Louis XIV himself. The truth. He died in 1703, still masked, and his real identity was never revealed. That's why history remembers him as the man in the iron mask. Frederick II, 1712 to 1786, King of Prussia, was one of Europe's most famous monarchs. He was a military genius and a reformer, but did you know he once had a strange war with potatoes? When potatoes were first introduced to Europe, German peasants refused to eat them. They said, "These ugly, weird roots can't possibly taste good." Frederick wanted his people to adopt potatoes as a cheap, reliable food source. He even ordered farmers to grow them, but most villagers disobeyed, some even threw the potatoes away. Instead of punishing them, Frederick came up with a clever trick. He planted potatoes in his royal garden and placed soldiers around them to guard them day and night. The peasants saw this and thought, if the king guards them like treasure, they must be valuable. Curiosity led peasants to secretly steal the potatoes. When they tasted them, they realized, hey, this is actually good and filling. Before long, potatoes spread everywhere and became a staple of the German diet. Did you know that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the biggest mistakes and can save millions of lives? In 1928, scientist Alexander Fleming was, well, kind of sloppy. He left his petri dishes lying around. And when he came back, oops, mold had taken over. But here's the twist, around the mold, the deadly bacteria were gone. His mistake revealed something powerful, penicillin, the world's first true antibiotic. That accident turned into a medicine that has saved over 200 million lives. So remember, sometimes being messy can change the world. From blunder to breakthrough. Sometimes, a world-changing invention starts with a melting chocolate bar. In 1945, engineer Percy Spencer was working on military radars. Standing near a live magnetron, he noticed the chocolate in his pocket had melted. Curious, he placed popcorn kernels near the radar, and boom! They popped everywhere. Then he tried an egg, it exploded in his face. That accident revealed microwaves could cook food. Soon after, the very first microwave oven was born. All thanks to one melted chocolate bar, a delicious mistake that changed the world. Over 100 years ago, one man made a light bulb glow, without plugging it in. While the world was busy pulling wires through every city, Nikola Tesla believed something insane. Electricity can travel through the air. He built massive Tesla coils shooting lightning across the room. Then he grabbed a simple light bulb, stepped into the electric field, and boom, it lit up in his hand. No wires. No socket. People thought it was magic. Tesla even built the Wardenclyffe Tower to send free electricity across the world. But investors shut it down, because you can't profit from free power. Today, his crazy idea powers wireless charging and modern tech. The man they called mad was simply a century ahead of us. This is Chow Chow, genius strategist, but feared as a ruthless, crafty hero. After failing to kill Dong Zhuo, he hid at an old friend's home. At dinner, He heard knives grinding, whispers. "Kill the pig, kill the goat." Suspicious, Chow Chow struck first, slaughtering the whole family. By morning, pigs and goats cried in the yard. But it was only a banquet. When accused of murder, Chow Chow replied, "I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me." In the year 1665, the plague swept across England. Universities shut down, including Cambridge, where a young student named Isaac Newton was studying. With nowhere else to go, Newton returned to his mother's farm in Woolsthorpe, thinking, well, a little countryside break during the plague can't hurt. One lazy afternoon, Newton sat under an apple tree. Suddenly, a ripe apple dropped, plop, onto the ground. Despite the legend, the apple never hit Newton's head. But watching it fall straight down sparked a question in his mind. Why does it always fall straight, never sideways or upward? That simple thought set him on the path to developing the concept of universal gravitation. While others spent quarantine doing nothing, Newton's apple moment quietly rewrote the laws of science. But Newton wasn't just brilliant, he was also hilariously absent-minded. Once, a servant prepared his dinner and left. Hours later, he returned to find Newton still sitting at the table, food untouched, staring into space. Newton had been so lost in thought that he forgot to eat entirely. Later in life, Newton shocked everyone by switching careers. He became the master of the Royal Mint in London. Instead of calculating equations, he was now chasing down counterfeiters. And he was relentless. Criminals whispered in fear, "You can hide from the police, but not from Newton." In 44 BC, Julius Caesar stood at the peak of his power. He had conquered lands, reformed politics, and was adored by the people. But in the Senate, fear was growing. Many believed Caesar wanted to become a king and end the Republic. On the Ides of March, March 15th, Caesar entered the Senate. Suddenly, he was surrounded and stabbed over and over again by the very men he called allies. And the cruelest twist of all, among them was Marcus Brutus, the man Caesar loved like a son. Shocked, he uttered the famous words, "Et tu, Brute? You too, Brutus?" The conspirators thought killing Caesar would save the Republic. But the ultimate twist. His death plunged Rome into bloody civil wars, and instead of saving freedom, it destroyed it. The Republic fell, and Rome became an empire. In 1916, Russian nobles tried to kill the most mysterious man in the empire, Rasputin. First, they laced his wine and cakes with cyanide. He ate them all. Nothing happened. Panicked, they shot him in the chest. He fell, dead. Or so they thought. Moments later, Rasputin got back up and ran into the courtyard. They shot him again, beat him, tied him up, and finally threw his body into an icy river. But when his body was recovered, doctors found water in his lungs. That means Rasputin didn't die from poison or bullets. He drowned. That's why history remembers him as the man who just wouldn't die. In 1918, the last Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, and his entire family were executed in a dark basement in Ekaterinburg. But when their bodies were buried, something didn't add up. One of the princesses, Anastasia, was missing. For decades, rumors spread like wildfire. Did Anastasia survive the massacre? Then, in 1920, a mysterious woman appeared in Berlin. She claimed she was the lost princess. She had the manners, the memories, even the scars that seemed to match. Some believed her. Others called her a fraud. For over 60 years, the world was divided. After her death in 1984, DNA tests revealed the shocking truth. She wasn't Anastasia. She was just a Polish factory worker named Franziska. And years later, when scientists uncovered the missing Romanov remains, the truth was undeniable. Nobody escaped that night. The entire Romanov family had been killed. The story of Anastasia wasn't a miracle survival. It was one of history's greatest illusions. This is Alexander the Great was the king of Macedonia, one of the greatest military leaders in history. But did you know he treated his sworn enemy as a friend? After the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, the Persian king Darius III fled in defeat. But betrayal struck. His own generals captured him, tied him up, and left him to die in a cart. Later, Macedonian scouts found Darius's lifeless body. Everyone expected Alexander the Great to celebrate. After all, Darius had been his biggest rival for years. But when Alexander arrived and saw the corpse, he wept. Instead of mocking his fallen enemy, Alexander took off his own royal cloak and placed it over Darius. He ordered a royal funeral with full honors, and returned the body to Persia for a king's burial. To cement his rule, Alexander even married Darius's daughter, turning a dead rival into the bridge to his new empire. Van Gogh is one of the greatest geniuses in the history of art, but sold just one painting in his lifetime. Can you believe this? Van Gogh painted obsessively, day and night, despite poverty and mental struggles. He survived only with financial help from his brother Theo. To the public, he was the madman with a brush, and nobody wanted his paintings. In 1888, Van Gogh finished The Red Vineyard. It was displayed at a small exhibition in Brussels. Most people laughed, mocked, and walked away. But then, a young female painter, Anna Bock, decided to buy it, for 400 francs, about $2,840. That single purchase made The Red Vineyard the only painting Van Gogh ever sold while alive. Just years after his death, the same works people rejected skyrocketed in value, today worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Did you know? One of America's greatest presidents grew up dirt poor in a tiny log cabin. Abraham Lincoln had less than 1 year of formal schooling. His parents couldn't even read or write. But young Abraham Lincoln was obsessed with learning. He walked miles just to borrow a single book. He read late at night by firelight, by candle, even by the glow of the moon. When a book was damaged, he copied it by hand, word for word. That poor boy from the frontier taught himself law, became a lawyer, and eventually, the President of the United States. Lincoln proved it. Your past doesn't define you. Your determination does. This is Napoleon Bonaparte, the military genius of France, who won glorious victories at Austerlitz, Jena, and Wagram, striking fear across Europe. But did you know, there was one time he was defeated by rabbits? In 1807, after signing a peace treaty, Napoleon organized a grand rabbit hunt to celebrate. Thousands of rabbits were released. But instead of running away, the entire swarm charged straight at Napoleon and his men. Why? The organizer had accidentally bought tame farm rabbits, rabbits used to being fed. So, they thought Napoleon was bringing lunch. And so, the emperor who once crushed mighty European coalitions was forced to retreat in panic from an army of bunnies. A defeat both hilarious and one of a kind in history. What did you learn from this story? Let me start with a quick introduction. This is Marie-Louise, born in 1791 and passed away in 1847, Princess of Austria and daughter of Emperor Francis I. One evening, at a royal ball in Vienna, a lady leaned toward Marie-Louise and whispered, "The Emperor of France is truly great. It's just a shame he's so short." Marie-Louise smiled but hadn't answered yet, when, to everyone's surprise, Napoleon, who was standing close enough to hear everything, turned around. Now most people would expect him to be furious. But Napoleon bowed politely and replied with a grin, "Madam, in a man, height is measured from the head up to the sky, not from the heels to the head." The ballroom went dead silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. The lady blushed like a tomato, while Napoleon walked away with the easiest victory of the evening, without firing a single cannon. And yes, not long after, Marie-Louise became his wife. This is Leonardo da Vinci, the ultimate Renaissance genius. The painter of the Mona Lisa, an inventor, a scientist. But what many people forget is that he also had a sharp wit and a great sense of humor. And one banquet in Milan proved it perfectly. At the feast, a boastful noble stood up and shouted, "I can draw a portrait in under 1 minute. Da Vinci isn't so special." The noble scribbled a few messy lines. The result? A disaster. The whole room laughed. Then Leonardo calmly stepped forward. With a piece of charcoal, in 10 seconds, he sketched the noble's face, but exaggerated, a long nose, tiny eyes, and a smug grin. The banquet erupted in laughter. Furious, the noble shouted, "That's not a portrait. That's a caricature." Leonardo just smiled and said, "Sometimes, what people see most clearly is not the portrait, but the truth behind it." Continuing with the stories of Leonardo da Vinci. Today we will have the story, Leonardo da Vinci and the Stolen Painting. One day, Leonardo was painting a commission for a distinguished client. While he was deeply focused, a servant rushed in and said, "Sir, your new painting has been stolen." Leonardo simply shrugged, looking calm. "Oh, really? Well, at least someone appreciates its value." The client, worried, asked, "But that painting was made for me. What will you do?" Leonardo smiled. "No worries, I'll paint another one, even better. I can even add a few details the thief wouldn't notice." A week later, the new painting was finished. The client noticed the differences and exclaimed, "Oh my, this version is even more amazing than the last one. Did you do this on purpose?" Leonardo winked. "Sometimes, a loss can spark inspiration, sir. And who knows, perhaps the thieving servant is a hidden art critic." Continuing with the story of Leonardo da Vinci, there is a true story about his masterpiece that is both shocking and a little ironic. When painting the Last Supper, Leonardo searched for the perfect model for the face of Jesus. He finally found a young choir singer in Milan, handsome, pure, almost angelic. Months later, he needed a model for Judas, the traitor. Leonardo looked through taverns, prisons, until he found a ragged beggar with a cruel, hardened face. But when the man stepped into the studio, Leonardo froze. It was the same man who had posed for Jesus years earlier. The man laughed bitterly and said, "See, it took only a few years to turn an angel into a devil." And Leonardo never forgot it.